It's springtime. Yes, but are you really happy about that? I mean, yes, of course. Flowers, butterflies, I love it. But what about pollen, sweltering Georgia heat, sweat? Okay, but we are optimistic on this channel. You're gonna need to go away. And how in the summer you sometimes get sad because there is no place where you can go to escape the sunlight. Yep, that's enough from you. Hi guys, it's Kristin. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be discussing my March wrap-up. This March I read 7 books, and out of those 7 books, 3 of them were audiobooks and 4 of them were physical read, and 3 of them were actually for the Animal Crossing Readathon, and I read them in like 6 days. So we are going to go ahead and get started with the books I read for the Animal Crossing Readathon, and for that readathon I read Heidi, Every Heart a Doorway, and Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Yes, a lot of overdue books were read for that readathon, as you would expect nothing less from, because it was the Animal Crossing readathon. So of course, I would read books that were gems during that readathon, because Animal Crossing is my own little gem in this world. So let's talk about the first book I finished, and that was Every Heart a Doorway by Shauna McGuire. I ended up giving this book 4.5 stars, and yes, that's incredibly high, but I do think that it was worthy of that ranking. If you haven't heard of the book, basically in one sentence, it is about these people who come back from magical worlds like Narnia and how they try to cope with being back in the real world. What sold this book for me was, one, I loved the shortness of it. I thought the brevity was refreshing, but really what sold this book for me was the premise, and it delivered on that. I wanted to know how characters would feel once they came back from a magical place, and this book definitely did that. I loved the writing style. I thought it was atmospheric and descriptive, but really this book was immersive. I felt like whenever the main character was describing this underworld that she came back from, I felt in those descriptions like I was there. And whenever a book truly transports me, then that's when I know that it's good. And that's why it got its 4.5 star ranking. The second book that I read for the Animal Crossing Readathon was The Crowd Wonders Why She's Never Read This Book in the First Place. Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. I gave this book 5 billion stars. Just kidding. I gave it 4.5 stars. In one sentence, this is a story of a 16-year-old named Jacob who follows the mystery of his uncle to an island where he discovers lots of strange mysteries, including some peculiar children. And it kind of goes from there as the peculiars struggle to exist within this time warp thing, and people are after Miss Peregrine. And the only reason I knocked off 0.5 stars was because the action in some of it would be like pages of action. He punched her in the nose, she kicked him in the groin. Not really. But that's the only reason why. I don't particularly love a lot of action in my stories. But otherwise, everything else about this book I enjoyed. Kind of in the same frame of Every Heart a Doorway, this story was immersive. And it's one of the few books I've read in a long time that reminds me of the magic of a good story. I was transported into this world, and I adore the peculiars. So this book definitely earned its 4.5 stars. And I've actually heard that the series gets better from here. So I'm so excited about that, because that means 5-star read. And we are always on the lookout for a 5-star read, And I did not complete the Animal Crossing Readathon. I didn't read 5 books, but I read 3. And the last one that I read for this readathon was a perfect spring read, really. And that was Heidi by Johanna Spyri. So this is a story of a girl named Heidi who goes to live with her uncle. And that's basically it. There's not much conflict in this story, minus the fact that she does have to go away for a short time, and she worries about her friend's health. It is a beautiful story that's kind of like a love letter to the Swiss Alps. The nature descriptions are so lyrically done. And it reminds me a lot of Anne of Green Gables in the fact that the nature of the story is reflective of the main character, almost inseparable from the main character. I loved that. It was very religious, so if that's not your thing, then maybe don't pick it up, but I think that it just added to the wholesome and tenderness of this story, and I personally loved it. I gave it 3 stars, which doesn't sound like I loved it, but because it didn't have a ton of conflict, it's not exactly a page turner. And in fact, the last 50 pages were like a little bit like pulling your teeth. You know what's going to happen. You know the mountains are going to be just as beautiful as ever, and the sunrises are going to just shine just as shiny as ever. But it just didn't have exactly enough conflict to make me speed read it. But I still really appreciate it, what it is. And I think that it's a children's classic for a reason. And I will never not be able to take my eyes off of this cover. This cover gives me life. So that was the Animal Crossing Readathon. The other books that I read in March were earlier in the year, so we'll talk about the audiobooks I read first. And the first audiobook I finished this year was the one that I listened to while I was moving into my new townhouse, and that was Dr. Sleep by Stephen King. I really appreciate how in this cover picture they do the shining hallway. Dr. Sleep follows a grown-up Danny Torrance, so the child from The Shining, as he deals with his own inner demons and also works to save a 12-year-old girl from a paranormal cult called the True Knot. The True Knot kind of preys on the ability of The Shining in children, this special nature to be able to understand more of what's going on in the world, almost kind of like when your brain can sense things that aren't there, whatever that is. Telepathic? I don't know. Sort of telepathic, I think. It's just a supernatural ability, okay? And I originally gave this book 4 stars. I have knocked it down to 3. I still enjoyed it, but it's a story that through the test of time, it hasn't really stuck with me. I enjoy horror. I thought that the beginning of Dr. Sleep was actually very terrifying. But there were a lot of points where I got lost. This happens a lot in Stephen King's books for me. I guess I'm just not I'm definitely not on his level, so I guess I don't understand a lot of it. But I appreciated how in Dr. Sleep, it wasn't as much as an in-depth character backstory story as it was in The Shining, just because I love character driven stories, but sometimes I feel like we go on forever and ever in a backstory for a character and it becomes only backstory and not action. I don't know. I am not dissing Stephen King. He's a genius and I love his stories, but that's just something that I've kind of noticed now that I've read. I guess this is his second book that I've read. But yeah, 3 stars. And then the second audiobook I listened to is one that I finished yesterday, and that is American Dirt by Janine Cummins. I decided not to give this book a rating just because I know there is so much controversy surrounding this story. I'm not even adding it to my Goodreads TBR for the year. But it's the story of a girl and her son as they escape gang violence in Mexico to cross into the American border. It was rife with conflict, but I can't in good conscience recommend it because I don't know how accurate of a portrayal it was of the immigrant experience. I don't know. I was curious about the book. I picked it up. I read it. I liked it. That's about as far as it's going to go for me on American Dirt. And now the last books that we're going to talk about are the books that I physically read during this month. It was a crazy month for me, right? Because I moved. I really only have 2 to talk about. You can kind of see this one here, and the cover is very obvious. So let's just talk about it. That is, of course, Heartstopper Volume 3 by Alice Oseman. In the story, Nick and Charlie... Well, if you don't know, Heartstopper is a graphic novel about these 2 boys and their relationship as they fall in love and come out to the world. And in Volume 3, Nick and Charlie go to Paris for a school trip. I loved this one more than the second one, maybe more than the first one, because it was a lot bigger, so it had more story to tell. And the story had a lot more conflict in it, and we're learning more about certain nuances of the characters. So it's almost like the relationship isn't just the whole heart of the story anymore. Now there's some more conflict going on. And I was really excited about that because I thought that the second one, as much as I loved it and it was super cute, needed more substance in it. So now we have it, and I'm so happy. And when does volume 4 come out? The last book that I'm going to talk to you about that I read was The Geography of Lost Things by Jessica Brody. This follows the story of a girl named Allie who goes on a road trip with her ex-boyfriend to sell her recently deceased father's really fancy Mustang. And then she finds out lots of things and kind of learns to deal with the problems that she's had with her dad in the past and goes on a journey herself. So I don't mind road trip stories. I know some people have strong feelings about them, but I liked this story. And in fact, I gave it 3.5 stars because I really appreciated how evident it was that our main character, Allie, changed from beginning to end. I love character-based stories where the character goes on a journey and changes because of it. And that's what this book was. It was also fun and funny. I loved this subplot sort of thing where her and her ex-boyfriend kept trying to trade up small objects to get more money for their trip. So they started off with a rubber band and ended up trading through Craigslist, ending up with, I won't tell you, you'll find out. But that was exciting and fun too. And there was a lot of internal conflict, which I swoon for. So I loved that as well. And there you have it. Those were my books that I read in the month of March, all 7 of them. I'm feeling like April is going to be a much more heavy reading month for obvious reasons. Of course, one of those being the fact that I'm a school teacher and my school is now online and I'm social distancing. So it's kind of a reader's dream come true to just have all this time to read, but it's really hard to appreciate it whenever you know that it's happening because of such sadness and uncertainty. And in fact, I kind of just want to end my video today just by saying that I hope that you take care of yourself wherever you are. I'm not going to say wash your hands and things like that. You know that. I just hope that you are able to find some bookish bliss and escapism to help you get through whatever uncertainty is going on right now. I have always been able to escape in a book, and I'm sure that you will be able to find that same temporary forgetfulness in something magical. And I hope that it'll be a 5-star read for you. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button in the comments below. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I read in March, or if you have any suggestions for what I should read in April. I would love to know. We're growing on this channel, and I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you for joining my bookish journey, and I want to talk to you, so leave me comments about what you're reading too below. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. I post new videos every Wednesday and Saturday and have so many ideas for future videos. I can't film fast enough, basically. All right, that's going to be it for now. Thanks for stopping by. Bye.